we have diverse perspectives on a whole lot of things. And we're not striving for unanimity, but we do because we're not a cult.
Yeah.
They're a cult on the other side.
Yes.
And their cult-like behavior following their MAGA wannabe king. That's not us. We're a coalition of people who just want to make life better for the American people and are dedicated to that.
Leader Hakeem Jeffries represents New York's 8th Congressional District and serves as House Minority Leader, already making history as the first Black lawmaker to lead a party in Congress. But this moment carries even greater weight. If Democrats win back the majority, he could become the first Black Speaker of the House, stepping into the role after one of the most consequential speakers in history, Nancy Pelosi. Those are big shoes. But Leader Jeffries has shown he's not a backbencher. He's a leader exercising power. From forcing discharge petitions onto the floor and driving them to passage, to keeping a diverse caucus unified, to at times controlling the House floor from the minority. He's building towards something bigger, recruiting strong candidates, raising resources, and positioning Democrats to take back the majority. This conversation is about leadership, legacy, and what comes next. Leader Jeffries, welcome to our table.
Great to be with you, my friend.
It's good to see you. It is so good to see you, and I'm so happy to have you at our table. This is our first conversation on this podcast with you, and man, I'm just overjoyed. I was excited about the prospect. I want to start off because, this whole show's concept is named after being at my grandparents' table, at their dinner table. And so whenever you sat down, before you got into the meat of the substance, you have to go into all this other stuff that my grandfather wanted to know.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to shoot some rapid fire at you because this is stuff on my mind that I want to know. Michael Jackson versus Prince. Who do you take?
Michael Jackson.
My man. Richard Pryor or Eddie Murphy?
That's a tough one. I think I'll go Eddie Murphy.
2 for 2. 5 seconds left. Down by 2. Who do you give the ball?
Jordan.
If not Jordan, LeBron or Kobe?
Kobe.
Bigger or Jay-Z?
That's a tough one. You're asking me to choose between two Brooklyn legends right now. But may he rest in peace. I'm going to go with Biggie.
Instagram versus TikTok?
Instagram is more my generation.
I got you. Yankees versus Mets?
Yankees. That's easy.
Yeah, that was an easy one. Listen, you grew up in Brooklyn. How did growing up in Brooklyn shape your worldview and how you approach politics today?
Well, growing up in Brooklyn and coming of age, certainly in the 80s into the early 90s in the middle of the crack cocaine epidemic,
Yep.
but being anchored in a strong community centered around my membership in the Cornerstone Baptist Church in the heart of Bedford-Stuyvesant, being raised in Crown Heights. Tough circumstances all around us, but an incredible community. And, the Black church sort of at the center of it, which continues to be important to me through this very day. At the same period of time, Brooklyn culture, music, and hip hop was also an important part of my upbringing, from the early days of Run DMC through Big Daddy Kane and LL Cool J, of course, and into the 90s when the Notorious B.I.G. broke onto the scene and you had Nas and the Wu-Tang Clan and Mobb Deep and DMX and all of these historic artists, of course, perhaps none more historic in terms of those who continue to be involved today than Jay-Z, proud of the fact that he's from Brooklyn. And that also helped shape sort of my thoughts on things because these were artists who were speaking truth to power in their own way at the same time that Black preachers and, our church mothers were enlightening us and speaking truth to power anchored in Christianity and the Black Baptist Church.
So in terms of these hip hop artists, all coming from New York, I mean, you're just the city overwhelmed with all this talent. As a young man, did you see some of these guys just on the street? Did you here in South Carolina, I only saw them on MTV or BET, but in New York, did you actually see them?
Well, you would you would see some of them,
Yeah.
right, at different stages of their careers.
Mm-hmm.
What was interesting, when I was first in law school, which was in the fall of 1994, and a lot of Black law students at the time who were a year or two ahead of me moved to Clinton Hill and Fort Greene at a time when those neighborhoods were affordable. Now they are largely unaffordable, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But they're living in Clinton Hill, and up the block is Biggie Smalls and Junior Mafia, right? Who were just coming out in the fall of 1994. So, we were coming of age at a time when these artists were coming of age.
Mm-hmm.
And, generationally, it was a powerful thing.
What was the moment, and many of these hip hop artists talked about politics and where we were as a community. What was the moment for you that where the light turned on and you said, you know what, maybe I should get into this political game?
Well, what was interesting is that I think the first hip hop verse that I recall as being political and it's stuck in my mind is when Biz Markie said, "Reagan is the pres, but I voted for Shirley Chisholm." That has stuck with me through this very day. And now I have the honor of representing many of the neighborhoods in Congress that Shirley Chisholm first represented. And though I don't have any memory of Shirley Chisholm as Congresswoman coming through the Cornerstone Baptist Church where I grew up, it's clear to me that she did.
Yeah.
When she was representing the Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhoods during the 70s, when I was first attending Cornerstone as a very young boy at the time. I think for me, in terms of my entryway into public service, what first compelled me was just some of the injustice that I was seeing as it relates to police violence and unarmed African-American men in New York City being killed unjustifiably, and often that not resulting in justice being served. And we've come a long way since then. We still have a long way to go in terms of criminal justice reform more broadly, but that has really been sort of my entry point into public service during my time in the state assembly and even some of the work that I've done in my early years in Congress, particularly connected to the First Step Act.
I want to spend some time thinking about the Democratic Party and where we are. You are the Democratic leader in the House of Representatives. What's your honest assessment of where the Democratic Party stands right now and where it needs to go?
Yeah, well, from the perspective of House Democrats, we feel like we're strongly positioned. We've effectively, in many instances, and aggressively pushed back against the extremism that Donald Trump and House Republicans have been unleashing on the American people, battling them on tariffs, battling them on health care, battling them to get ICE under control, battling them as it relates to this reckless war of choice that Donald Trump has gotten us into, where he's spending billions of dollars to drop bombs in the Middle East, but can't find a dime to make life better for the American people. We've been battling them successfully on redistricting. We still got to run through the finish line on that. And we're strongly positioned to take back the House. But we, of course, still have more work to do to establish a deeper connection with the American people, with everyday Americans, communities of color, working class Americans, and younger Americans in particular. And that's work that we're committed to doing because authentically, we want to make life better for the American people.
Yeah.
That's who we are as Democrats. We wake up each and every day trying to figure out how are we going to improve the quality of life of working class folks, middle class folks, those who aspire to be part of the middle class, the poor, the sick, the afflicted, the least, the lost, the left behind, our veterans, our dreamers, our farmers, our union members, our seniors. We want to make life better for the American people. And that doesn't always come through as clearly as it needs to, in part because the other side peddles disinformation
all the time
and lies all the time, even though their primary focus is to make life better for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I think a lot of folks don't understand how big of a task it is being the Democratic leader in the House. I don't think a lot of folks understand how diverse the Democratic caucus really is. How do you keep House Democrats unified when you have a caucus that has sometimes real ideological and generational, ethnic, gender. I mean, when you think about the diversity of America, you see that diversity in the House Democratic Caucus. So how you are the leader, how do you keep all of them together in order to really move forward on this agenda for America?
Well, nobody best embodies the gorgeous mosaic of the American people, what the American people reflect who they are and aspire to be, than House Democrats, as you've laid out. The great Jim Clyburn, powerful mentor to you.
My political father.
Absolutely. Great mentor to all of us who serve in the Congress, myself, and so many other members of the CBC and beyond. He once made an observation that stuck with me about the Democratic Caucus. And of course, Jim Clyburn served as whip in that position, highest ranking African-American ever in the Congress at the point in time when he held that position, not once, but twice, and did great things with it. Great Jim Clyburn once made the observation that unity is different than unanimity. Brilliant observation. And so we have diverse perspectives on a whole lot of things. And we're not striving for unanimity, but we do because we're not a cult.
Yeah.
They're a cult on the other side.
Yes.
And their cult-like behavior following their MAGA wannabe king. That's not us. We're a coalition of people who just want to make life better for the American people and are dedicated to that. So we're not striving for unanimity. That's cult-like behavior. But we are striving for is unity. And in order to achieve unity, we can have robust, enthusiastic, and exuberant discussions. We can work it out like people work it out sometimes at the dining room table, right? At the kitchen table, at the barbecue. We can have those family discussions. But at the end of the day, what we've got to do is get to the highest common denominator so that we can move forward and make meaningful progress whenever and wherever possible. And where we fall short, live to fight another day to keep things going, fighting one battle after another.
And your record, and I often try to point it out, particularly to some of our naysayers online, but your record is one, I've been around this block for a minute. I came on the Hill when I was 20-something years old, and now I'm 50. I have not seen this Democratic caucus as unified in terms of mission and purpose and actually getting stuff done as I have seen under your leadership these last 2 years. Can you really lay out what have been some of the big wins that you have had that most people may not know about?
Yeah. Well, most recently, we were able to force an up or down vote on the House floor with respect to a straightforward 3-year extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits.
Yep.
And that came on the heels of a 43-day Trump Republican government shutdown. Nobody thought it was possible that we would actually be able to achieve that objective in the House. In fact, since the Affordable Care Act was passed in 2010, and you were on the Hill helping to shepherd that with Speaker Pelosi and Steny Hoyer and Jim Clyburn and the House Democratic Caucus at the time, but up until the point where we compelled 17 House Republicans to vote for an extension of the Affordable Care Act, not a single Republican in 15 years had ever voted for the Affordable Care Act.
They'd always tried to defund it.
They'd always tried to defund it.
Yeah.
And they are continuing to do that. That's what's happening right now.
Yeah.
But we were able to move legislation through a discharge petition, force an up or down vote, and then compel 17 Republicans to join us. By the way, that's our third successful so-called discharge petition. That's really just a vehicle where the minority can collect enough signatures, which includes, when you're in the minority, compelling a handful of Republicans to join you to defy their president and defy their speaker in order to force something onto the floor that we need to get done for the American people. That was how we were able to trigger legislation that has compelled the Department of Justice to release the Epstein files, consistent with what the brave, courageous, and heroic Epstein survivors have demanded. They want transparency and accountability, so do the American people. We're working to deliver it. Something else that didn't get a lot of attention is that last year, we were able to successfully, through a discharge petition led by Democratic Congressman Jarrett Golden from Maine, to compel an up or down vote that wiped away one of Donald Trump's first executive orders that would have stripped away collective bargaining rights for more than 1 million different federal employees. Pro-union legislation coming out of this Congress led by Democrats, and in that instance, joined by 20 House Republicans. The last issue where we've been successful, important, and this effort was led by Congressman Greg Meeks, led by Democrats, is that we were able to, in the House at least, override one of Trump's reckless tariffs that are creating a situation where people are experiencing thousands of dollars additional costs, but we were able to wipe out on the House floor the Trump tariffs that he has imposed on Canada. And that, of course, overwhelmingly Democratic members supporting that, joined by a handful of Republicans. So top line here is that we've been governing from the minority as if we're in the majority.
That's exactly right.
And in ways that no one has really seen on the House floor.
Ever.
And
I don't think people understand that. Discharge petitions, and I remember this when we were in the minority, we would often put them up. They would never go anywhere. For you to be this successful with this discharge petition strategies, showing that, one, you have unified the Democratic caucus in a way that is historically, we have never seen. And two, you are so unified, you are able to pull over a few Republicans to join with Democrats in order to govern. That's a big damn deal.
Well, listen, we've had great mentors in the House. Speaker Emeritus Nancy Pelosi. No one knows the House floor better than her. We've learned from her. And of course, I mentioned Jim and Steny, John Lewis, Maxine Waters, Charlie Rangel. Like, one of the beauties of serving in the Congress, the People's House, is that you can travel along this journey and serve with some of the best that the country has ever seen. And now the baton has been passed to us, and we've got to continue to do the job on behalf of everyday Americans, and that's what we're committed to doing.
You have any other more discharge petitions, between now and November, that a strategy you're trying to pull some other things up that you want to force a vote?
We're getting ready to launch a discharge petition, as a matter of fact, on funding TSA, funding FEMA, funding the Coast Guard, funding the cybersecurity professionals who are keeping us safe, all of whom right now are being held hostage by the extreme Republican agenda on mass deportation. So the Republicans have shut down the Department of Homeland Security because they don't want to get ICE under control. And as a result, TSA agents are being forced to work without pay. Americans are being inconvenienced all across the country. And chaos has been created in airports throughout America. Why? Because Republicans apparently want to continue to spend billions of dollars to unleash mass and untrained ICE agents to brutalize and kill the American people and violently target law-abiding immigrant families. It's insane. So we're launching this week a discharge petition to trigger an up or down vote to pay TSA agents, pay FEMA, pay the Coast Guard, pay our cybersecurity professionals while we work through the challenges in terms of getting ICE under control. Don't hold the American people hostage.
Yeah. I have been, you can't help but become a student of history when you hang out with Jim Clyburn a little bit. And I've been looking at our history when the last time, we lost a presidential election, and then, all the newspapers writing the obituary of the Democratic Party, we're dead and this and that. And then something happened. This was in 2004. We lost with Kerry. Then in 2006, we took back the majority. And that was a big deal. And part of what I saw in 2006, I'm seeing very similar right now. In 2006, we had the Iraq war going on. But what do we have right now? We have a Middle East war in Iran. We saw a culture of corruption gripping Washington, D.C. in 2006. I mean, the Bush administration had so many corrupt folks. What are we seeing now in the Trump administration? Nothing but corruption. I saw that headline about Jared Kushner the other day and all the money he's making. We see an opportunity. We see an overreach of the Republican Party. Then in 2006, they tried to privatize Social Security. What have they done now? They try to gut healthcare in this country. What are Democrats doing to position us, knowing the history that we have gone down this road before, to position us to win back the majority in 26 like we did in 06?
Well, we've recruited an incredibly talented group of candidates, many of whom have non-traditional experience, haven't served in elected office before, but have incredible life experience. And so they're combat veterans, they're nurses, they're doctors, they're teachers, they're social workers, they're philanthropists and entrepreneurs, firefighters, people who have life experiences that demonstrate clearly that they care about the American people, are committed to a life of service. And now, given all the extremism that has been unleashed on America by Donald Trump and House and Senate Republicans, feel the need, the urgent need to put themselves forward, to run for Congress, to serve, so we can end this national nightmare here in this country and get things turned around in America. And on issues, I think what we've seen is incredibly misplaced priorities.
Yeah.
We're actually focused on making life more affordable for the American people. We believe that if you work hard, you play by the rules, that the American people should be able to live a comfortable life, an affordable life, and a good life. But the deck is stacked against them. And it's been the case for decades. And we got to turn that situation around. We also have to fix our broken healthcare system. It's extraordinary to me that in their one big ugly bill, Republicans have ripped Medicaid away from children, away from seniors, away from women, away from hardworking American families, in order to give ICE a $75 billion slush fund so they can brutalize the American people. And at the same period of time, gave their mega donors a massive tax break that they didn't need and certainly don't deserve at a time when everyday Americans are struggling. And so we're going to continue to contrast their extremism with our vision, our commitment to actually helping the American people achieve the life that they deserve, because they're working hard and they're playing by the rules, but far too many people are struggling to live paycheck to paycheck. Not acceptable in the United States of America, the wealthiest country in the history of the world.
We can't accept it. And this is why everybody needs to stand up. They need to get registered. They need to go vote. And they're going to try to keep people from the polls. They're going to try everything that they can in order, because they know the history. They see where the winds are blowing. And this is the reason why Donald Trump decided to do what he did on redistricting, right? So tell us, we saw he had this big offensive, let's go into Texas, let's redistrict, let's do there, let's think about Florida and some of these other things. And you, as the leader of the Democrats in the House, you said, hold on. Give us a little sense of what your strategy was on how to counter his efforts to do all of this crazy redistricting.
Yeah, my view out of the gate was that under no circumstances will we unilaterally disarm.
Yes.
We're going to push back and fight back aggressively with all the force that we can muster. And that began with the effort by Texas Democrats in the state legislature to go on quorum break, to leave the state, to dramatize what Republicans were trying to do in Texas, and then trigger a massive Democratic response around the country, which of course began in California. Shout out to Gavin Newsom. He's done a great job with Prop 50. Speaker Pelosi, Pete Aguilar, Zoe Lofgren, the entire congressional delegation, the state legislative leaders and the Democratic members of the Assembly and the state Senate in California. The people of California, organized labor, SEIU, and so many others all did a tremendous job, came together to forcefully counteract what they've attempted to do in Texas. Now, the interesting thing is that the Republicans overreached in Texas. They claim that they're going to get 5 seats. At best, they'll get 3. And they may not even get 3. We're going to get 5 in California. So they're already going to start off in a deficit. And then we've pushed them back in places like Indiana and New Hampshire and Kansas, right? We fought them to a draw, which they didn't think was going to be possible in Ohio because they control everything in Ohio. But we backed them up in Ohio. We're going to take them to a referendum in Missouri, which should be able to, at minimum, freeze their gerrymandering efforts in that state to make sure that Congressman Emanuel Cleaver comes back to Congress. They tried to take his district away, try to take a seat from Don Davis. He's going to win re-election. And at the same period of time, we've won litigation in Utah. There's going to be a Democrat that comes to Congress from the state of Utah.
My in-laws are very happy. they're right there in Salt Lake City. Yes, they were ready to vote for a Democrat to represent them in Congress.
Absolutely. And then we just got to finish the job in Virginia, where there's a referendum on the ballot next month. And the question for Virginia voters is who should decide who serves in Congress after the midterm elections. Donald Trump wants to make that decision, but we can't let Trump steal the midterm elections. We got to create a fair national map and stop Trump from his gerrymandering scheme. And the people of Virginia are going to play an important role. Vote yes on the referendum in Virginia next month.
Are you concerned about Louisiana versus Calais?
Well, I think we certainly have to be concerned with the fact that you've got people like Clarence Thomas or Justice Alito who are determined to gut the Voting Rights Act.
SYAD.
Which is unbelievable because, as John Lewis would often say, the right to vote is sacred. It's sacrosanct, right? It's special.
Yeah.
It's so intimately connected to what American democracy is all about. And it's not theoretical. One person, one vote is designed to allow the American people to make a decision as to who actually serves them in office, not some king-like figure in terms of Donald Trump. Now, I'm hopeful that Justice Roberts and Justice Kavanaugh actually stick with their original position, because 2 years ago, these two justices, joined by, of course, the three enlightened justices who were appointed by Democratic presidents, upheld Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. And so why in the world, 2 years later, in the midst of all that we're seeing, including, racism that's been unleashed at the highest levels of government, how in the world could they conclude 2 years later that the Voting Rights Act is outdated? It, of course, is not. It's urgently needed at this moment in time.
Do you find it difficult? You are the leader of Democrats in the House, but you are also you are the most prominent member of the Congressional Black Caucus. How do you balance your role as the leader of Democrats?
Jim Clyburn and Benny Thompson and Maxine Waters, they always occupy the Mount Rushmore at this moment in time. But it's an honor. I'm sorry I cut you off.
No.
But it's an honor to serve in the Congressional Black Caucus.
Yeah. So, but how do you balance that role sometimes? Because sometimes, the CBC is the conscience of the Congress, and sometimes it's a little different than I remember in the past. The CBC take a different angle than where Democrat leadership is going. So how do you balance that?
Yeah. No, I mean, it is an important question in terms of, listen, I value my membership in the Congressional
Black Caucus. You do.
It's an amazing thing. And later on today, I'll be at the CBC meeting, and I attend every week.
That's amazing.
No matter what's going on.
That's amazing.
Every week.
Folks, if you don't know, CBC meets every Wednesday and they have a lunch, and every member, it rotates the members who provide the lunch for that week, right? Do they still do that?
Still do that. It rotates. And I'll never forget one time when it was Cory Booker's turn.
Well, God, why did Cory?
Right. I mean, they probably should have jumped over my brother, but it was Cory Booker's turn. And so, of course, Cory being Cory, now normally,
he has some kind of vegan stuff.
Correct, because normally it's soul food.
Oh, Lord, Cory.
Right, and we all look forward to it. Cory had a vegan meal. And then my brother, who's doing a great job.
I love Cory.
But my brother whipped out his phone, and he was asking members of Congress within the CBC to react. So then he got to Marsha Fudge.
Oh, God. Marsha's going.
Boss lady.
Boss lady.
My first chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. And I'll never forget, he got to Marsha Fudge, and she was either the chair or had just finished up in a chair. She said, Cory, never do that again.
I can hear it. Oh, man. But folks, the CBC really is the conscience of the Congress. One of the things I do want to spend some time with you is, I know that sometimes folks conflate the action or the inactions of the Senate with the House.
Yeah.
And, they get mad. They just get mad at Congress. And sometimes, it is because of, the Senate deliberates at a speed of a snail sometimes, right? Whereas you are moving things along. Does that bother you? How do you deal with that, and how do you explain to folks that we're two different bodies?
Well, absolutely, and the House was designed as the institution to reflect the passions of the American people and to move with speed.
Yes,
and the Senate was actually designed to slow things down.
Yeah,
and that was the framework by which the Congress was designed. And I know that can be frustrating. It's frustrating for members of Congress who serve in the House, whose stuff sometimes gets bogged down in the Senate. But I also do understand, the original intent to actually create sort of a deliberative process in the Senate that did sometimes frustrate people by slowing things down. And the House to sort of, as James Madison said, be in intimate sympathy with the American people, then reflect their passions and boom, move quick as possible. We're dealing with that right now. We passed the Affordable Care Act tax credits in the House of Representatives. No one thought that was going to be possible, but we got it done, as we talked about. But now it's being held up in the Senate, not because Democrats don't support it. Leader Schumer and every single Senate Democrat supports a 3-year extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits to protect the health care of 20 million Americans and make sure they can go see a doctor when they need one. But it's being held up by Senate rules. Now, I do think that we are going to have to evaluate the continued relevance of the filibuster. Because here's the thing. There are exceptions to the filibuster right now that Republicans are using to do damage to the American people.
They took the exception to this, the Supreme Court. It's the reason why they were able to pack that.
That's right. The Supreme Court is what it is right now because Republicans under Donald Trump during his first term put 3 right-wing justices
exactly right.
on the court using an exception to the filibuster. So they didn't have to get 60 votes. And by the way, this one big ugly bill was made possible. Every single Democrat voted against it in the House and the Senate. This one big ugly bill, which has done great damage to the American people in terms of their health care, nutritional assistance, quality of life, housing, was made possible by a budget exception to the filibuster called reconciliation. And so, okay, if Republicans can use exceptions to the filibuster to stack the Supreme Court or to damage the well-being, the health, the safety of the American people, then we're going to have to consider what type of exceptions are important in order to make sure that things like the John Robert Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act are passed into law so that everybody can participate in this great country of ours moving forward in the next 250 years.
You get the gavel. You're Speaker of the House. What do you want to do in your first 100 days?
Well, in our first 100 days, we want to deliver on our promise of making life more affordable. Because we know that costs are out of control. And we'll be in divided government because the current occupant of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue is still, going to be in the midst or the middle of his 4-year term.
As we say in South Carolina, bless his heart.
Bless his heart. But the reality is, we believe the American people are going to rebuke Republican policies and Donald Trump. And we'll have a mandate to actually drive down costs. And we want to focus on housing, focus on groceries and goods and healthcare. Certainly make sure that we're focusing on childcare. The things that will enable people, when they're working hard and playing by the rules, to live a comfortable life, an affordable life, live the good life. And we define that pretty clearly. Good paying job, good housing, good healthcare, good education for your children. And when it's all said and done, a good retirement.
Mr. Leader, one of the issues that has been gripping our caucus since 2024, and I think adding now Iran into the mix, we have Israel, Palestine, and now we have Iran. So the Middle East is just a hotbed. How do you bring or find some unity within the Democratic caucus to navigate that, to make the American people feel like we're moving in a positive direction?
Well, no, it's a great question. And I think right now, sort of where we're at is that you've got Donald Trump, who's launched this reckless war of choice, the same guy who promised he would not get us involved in reckless wars in the Middle East. And now he's spending billions of dollars to drop bombs in the Middle East in a war that now involves more than 12 different countries. So that's out of control. That needs to be brought to an end. At the same period of time, you have an enduring problem between Israel and the Palestinian people. And we got to solve that problem and find a path, a meaningful path toward a just and lasting peace, which involves, in my view, a 2-state solution. A safe and secure Israel living side by side with a Palestinian state that allows the Palestinian people to experience the dignity and self-determination that they desire and deserve. And it's been difficult to achieve. And administrations have tried over and over and over again. But particularly in light of what we've seen over the last several years, we've got to solve that challenge in the Middle East. And the foundation of it, I believe, is an authentic recommitment to achieving a two-state solution, no matter what the obstacles have been to date.
And I think House Democrats can help be part of the solution to get that done. One of the traditions that we have on this show, Mr. Leader, is we present a certain award to a certain person or people or group, and it's called the Sit Your Ass Down Award. And so this week, we give you the honor to pick the recipient of the Sit Your Ass Down Award. Basically, whomever needs to sit down, gather themselves, and get themselves right. So who would you like to present this week's Sit Your Ass Down Award to?
Well, there are a lot of options within the Congress and the administration. As the military sometimes says, it's a target-rich environment. But I believe at this moment, Pete Hegseth needs to sit his ass down. This guy, the most unqualified Secretary of Defense in American history.
DEI did not earn it.
That's correct. And then want to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah.
Really? You're the poster child for mediocrity.
That's exactly.
And now you've gotten us into, along with Trump and others, this reckless war of choice in the Middle East. You got no plan, no strategy, no objectives, and no vision to actually get us out of this conflict, which is why this war of choice, this reckless war of choice, is so deeply unpopular. Pete Hegseth needs to sit his ass down.
Sit your ass down. Well, Mr. Leader, it's been fantastic to get an opportunity to sit with you. And I want to do this again right after you win the speakership. I want to be in the speaker's office, and we get into set up in the speaker's office, and you take that gavel. I can tell you, I cannot wait until that moment. The American people can't wait until that moment, because what it means then is that we will have real check on the chaos that we are seeing coming from 1600. But it also means that we're going to have somebody who really gives a damn about the American people, who's fighting for them every single day. So thank you so much for being at our table. Thank you for being here. Any parting words that you want to give on why should the American people give you the gavel and give House Democrats the majority again?
Well, Donald Trump and Republican policies have been a disaster, and we are committed every day, every week, every month, year after year, to do what is necessary to actually make life better for the American people. And we know that begins with driving down the high cost of living, and that's our commitment.
Mr. Leader, thank you for being at our table.
Appreciate you, man.
Good seeing you, brother. Right. Thank you, man. If you enjoyed today's show, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Follow us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pixel Plus, or anywhere you find your podcasts. For bonus content and analysis, join our community on Substack at jamieharrison.substack.com. At Our Table with Jamie Harrison is a production of Vision Blue Media. Our founding executive producers are Jason Hyder and Jamie Harrison. Our producer is Kyle Kelly. Our content consultants are Ernie Grigg and Clay Middleton. Our digital communications are led by Lauren Brown. Our social media strategist is Nia Asanza. Inez Smolansky provides production legal. Title sequence by Tom Hunt. Our theme song, Blonde Gone, is written by Dewey and published by Alibi Music Library. This episode was recorded at the DNC studio in Washington, D.C., and engineered by Johnny Wood and Scott Brown. Very special thanks to Leader Jeffries and his team. I'm Jamie Harrison, and I look forward to another conversation at our table.